Here are the topics that are going to be covered within the Supreme Court revision videos. This particular video is going to focus on the membership of the Supreme Court, some key terms to be familiar with, as well as the power of the Supreme Court and the role that the court has as the Constitution's protector and interpreter. Today, there are 9 members of the Supreme Court, 1 Chief Justice, who is currently John Roberts, and 8 Associate Justices. This number is fixed by Congress, and it has not changed since 1869. President Roosevelt tried to increase the number, but this was deemed unconstitutional. It has been suggested that Biden might look into this during his presidency as well. As you know, appointments are made by the President, but they must be approved by the Senate. The Chief Justice has the same powers as the Associate Justice, but they are responsible for chairing the court, and they decide which justices will write opinions on which cases. And then sometimes the Chief Justice, if he is in the minority, he will write the case as well. In many ways, the Chief Justice influences the character of the judgments made by the court. They are also responsible for administering the oath of office during presidential inaugurations and chairing a presidential impeachment. The court is also named after the Chief Justice, so the current court is known as the Roberts Court. The current Chief Justice, John Roberts, is only the 16th person to ever hold this position in office in nearly 230 years. Key predecessors that you will need to be aware of are Earl Warren, who served from 1953 to 1969, Warren Earl Burger from 1969 to 1986, and William Rehnquist from 1986 to 2005. The balance of justices on the court has far more bearing on its judgments than the individual Chief Justice. There is currently a 6-3 Conservative majority on the court, as you can see on the table on the screen. All justices usually hear each case, so the odd number of justices on the bench prevents tied decisions. However, there have been a period where fewer than 9 justices have sat on the court and tried a case. This can happen when a seat is empty. For example, there was only 8 justices on the court following Associate Justice Anton Scaglia's death in 2016, and it remained empty until 2017 when Neil Gorsuch was appointed. Before we dive into the constitutional role of the Supreme Court, we need to go through some key terms that are going to be used throughout this module. Before I can go through them, pause the video here and test yourself on the definitions. Let's start with judicial review. Judicial review is the power of the judiciary to review laws and government actions to see whether they conform to the Constitution. If they violate the Constitution, the court has the power to overturn them. What is judicial restraint? Judicial restraint is the approach to judicial decision-making which holds the judges and should defer to legislative and executive branches, and to establish a precedent that the previous court has withheld. What is judicial activism? Judicial activism is an approach to a judicial decision making where you decide whether the judges should use their position to promote desirable social ends. In normal terms, this basically means making a decision based on your opinion rather than what the law says. What is a strict constructionist? A strict constructionist is a justice who interprets the Constitution in a strict, liberal or conservative sense. This is sometimes known as an originalist as well. What is a loose constructionist? Well, this is the opposite. A loose constructionist is a justice who interprets the Constitution in a liberal or loose way. They see the Constitution as a living constitution, meaning it can be changed and interpreted all the time. Although the Constitution is a codified document, its meaning is not always clear. The role of the Supreme Court is to interpret the Constitution and apply it to modern situations. It ensures that both laws and executive actions comply with the Constitution. In effect, this means that the Constitution means whatever the Supreme Court wants it to mean. As the Constitution is sovereign, this gives the Supreme Court tremendous power to determine its meaning of the law. In regards to the Constitution itself, it did give the Supreme Court the power to invalidate the actions of other branches of government. While the power is not mentioned in the Constitution itself, therefore it is an implied power. It can be argued that the Supreme Court found the power for itself in the 1803 case of Marbury v. Madison, when the Supreme Court first declared an act of government unconstitutional. By using this power, the court can, in effect, update the meaning of the words of the Constitution. We know already that the Supreme Court has the power to interpret the Constitution. Justices can interpret the Constitution literally, that's a strict constructionist, or by reading between the lines, this is a loose constructionist. Let's take a more detailed look into these. According to a strict constructionist philosophy, the Constitution is a precise legal document that can only be updated or changed through the formal amendment process. Strict constructionists are closely associated with originalists who believe that the language and words in the Constitution should be interpreted in the way that the framers intended them to be read. A famous originalist was Anthony Scalia, pictured on the screen. Republican presidents generally aim to appoint strict constructionist and originalist justice. Clarence Thomas, the longest-serving justice on the Supreme Court currently, and dedicated originalist, was appointed by George H.W. Bush. President Trump appointed 3 originalists. He appointed Neil Gorsuch, Brett Kavanaugh, and Amy Coney Barrett. However, it is worth noting that an originalist justice does not automatically make conservative judgments. Indeed, in 2020, Gorsuch wrote the majority opinion on the landmark ruling that outlawed discrimination by employees because of sexual orientation. On the liberal side, loose constructionists dominate. They believe that the Constitution should be interpreted loosely and applied to a modern context, as opposed to relying on the framers' precise meaning. This allows interpretation to evolve over time. Loose constructionists like Ruth Bader Ginsburg, pictured on screen, favoured the idea of a living constitution, meaning that it should be interpreted by the court to suit the changing needs of society over time.